The gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Davis, is now recognized. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, for a very informative hearing. And I also want to commend our colleague, Delegate Norton, because for as long as I can remember, long before I ever came to Congress, Eleanor Holmes Norton was pushing and keeping D.C. statehood in front of Congress and in front of the American people. And so I commend her for that. I have to admit that I've heard some of the most intellectually dishonest absurdity that I've ever been privileged to hear in terms of some of the rationale that I've heard as to why there should not be statehood for the District of Columbia. I've been a proponent of statehood for D.C. since elementary school, when we were taught this notion that there ought not be any kind of situation where you paid taxes and did not have the opportunity to be fully represented. And so this notion of taxation without representation has always stuck with me. And I've always been amazed that people in the District of Columbia were paying taxes but could not be represented. Mr. Henderson, I want to thank you for your testimony, as I thank all of the witnesses for their testimony and enlightenment that we have been able to get today. But I've been impressed. I've been listening to you for a number of years as you have been a principled advocate for many issues that you have testified before Congress about. So, Wade, I'd like to ask you, this notion of small states, large states, when people deal with it, are they talking about geography or are they talking about population?
Well, Mr. Davis, thank you for your question. They're clearly referring to geography in the sense that they're talking about, when they talk about states like Wyoming, which has a far smaller population than the District of Columbia, and yet is welcomed into the statehood ambit without criticism. It's clearly about the geography that Wyoming represents, not its population. But the truth is, many of the arguments that you've cited from those on the panel really undermine the basic notion that we're really talking about voting rights for American citizens. You know, voting is the language of democracy, Mr. Davis. If you don't vote, you don't count. And that is, unfortunately, the history of our country. We have 700,000 disenfranchised citizens of this country who are denied the right to have a voting representative in our national legislature. And one last point that I have to make. Those who cite the insurrection, the Philadelphia insurrection of 1783, as the justification for creating a national center like the District of Columbia to protect the interests of Congress, flies out of the window in the face of the January 6th insurrection. We had a national capital in the District of Columbia, and yet our mayor was denied the right to protect the representatives in our Congress from the worst insurrection that they have experienced since the War of 1812. That argument has no meaning in the 21st century, as we have seen most recently.
Thank you so much. I've still got a few seconds left, and if Hank Johnson is still with us and would like the time, if I ever need a lawyer, Hank would be my guy. I'd give him the additional time that I've got.